You're listening to Puma Podcast.
During the siege, I almost died 3 times. The first one was I was instructed by my auntie to get the jeepney of my uncle. Kunin mo yung jeepney sa may airport. So I went with my cousin, my beautiful cousin, buti na lang. As I was going up the airport, and may soldiers na. They stopped us. Rebelde ka, no? They were about to shoot me. Kasi I was 16, medyo able-bodied na, di ba? Pwede na. But my cousin used her charm and convinced the soldiers, hindi po, estudyante lang yan. Soldiers disagreed. No? Okay, alis na kayo. And we found out later on, marami palang pinatay na suspects by the military as rebels. Mga age ko. One of them was a classmate of mine, Alfred Chiang, at Notre Dame of Jolo Boys Department. And others were just executed. Kasi martial law, there was news blackout. Basta pinapatay lang yung mga gusto nila eh. Second time, the Air Force planes I was talking about, they were strafing the rebels. Eh yung mga rebels nga, they were hiding behind the pillars of our house in walled city, concrete. Natatama nga yung bubong namin. And one of the bullets almost hit me. It just landed like 6 inches in front of my feet. 50 caliber bullet. And it was spinning. It was still spinning and hot when I got it. Third time was when I was scavenging for food. Wala na kami makain and my family. I had to go to a burnt bakery. So I got burnt bread. Plus, I had to get drinks also. So may mga groceries forced open by residents who were hungry and thirsty. Talagang binuksan na lang nila yung mga groceries. So sumama na ako. I got pineapple juice. And then, of course, I almost stepped on a landmine. I was about to step on it, but yung nakita ko, ano to, parang landmine. So those were the 3 times I almost died.
I'm Bella Perez Rubio, Puma Podcast, and you're listening to Teka Teka News. In this episode, we listen in as survivors of the often overlooked Battle of Jolo recall what it was like to watch Sulu's vibrant capital burn some 50 years ago.
I was born in Zamboanga, but our family lived in Jolo because my grandparents and all of my aunts and uncles were from Jolo. So I grew up there. All of my relatives were from there.
That's Agnes Aleman, author of The Siege of Jolo, 1974, speaking at the forum hosted by the Bantayog ng mga Bayani.
At the time, Jolo was very peaceful. White sand beaches and lots of fruits and vegetables and very fresh fish and seafood. It was like a mini paradise for me as I was growing up. Every weekend we would go to the beach and there was no trouble, except every now and then we would hear that there are skirmishes between the military and the MNLF, but these were like just ordinary things because we were not surprised if there were gunshots. They happened every day. Even my classmates at Muhammad Tulawi would be experts in identifying what those rifles used were. Like, that is an Uzi, that is an AK-47. It was like a game to them because it happened naturally. By the time that martial law was declared, we were playing in the playground because it was after school and because there was no access to news. I mean, as a child, although we had Bulletin Today at the time, my father was a subscriber, we did not really read the newspaper and there was really nothing there. We just listened to the radio, which played pop music. Nothing, no news of impending martial law or any pronouncements like that. So when martial law was finally declared, our teacher called us. Hey, umuwi na kayo. Martial law na. So we were like so surprised. Sino si martial law? Like we ask ourselves, we were we were that innocent. It was like total blackout in the media. And there were also checkpoints in various places of the town. We lived in Upper San Raimundo, and I would often just walk home from Muhammad Tulawi to our home in Upper San Raimundo. But during that time, it was already scary because there was curfew at 6 p.m. So we could not go out anymore. When we had birthday parties, we had to have them at 2 p.m. and we had to leave at 4 p.m. because it was dangerous to be caught outside. Meanwhile, there were reports of military abuses going on, especially in Parang, in Maimbung, in that area that's outside of Holo proper. It was a scary, scary period of our lives. So when the MLLF fighters were going to attack the town, when the rumors were already getting louder and louder, our parents sent us ahead to Dumaguete, which was the hometown of my mother, while they stayed in Jolo. Because my father was assistant provincial fiscal then, and my mother was clerk of court of the RTC of Jolo. They had to be in their jobs, but we were sent earlier on. When my classmates at Silliman University would ask me about Holo and what happened because why did we evacuate, I would always tell the story of we heard mortars and cannons and bullets and gunshots, and it was like that. And they were so shocked because nothing like that would ever happen in Dumaguete. The troubles that we had in Holo was nothing like they ever experienced in the Visayas that they know of.
Because this siege is given so little attention, it might be hard to grasp its relevance and the degree of devastation suffered by those affected. To help with that, here's the forum's moderator, Dr. Juan Antonio Perez III, a Board of Trustees member at the Bantayog ng Mga Bayani Foundation.
The most prominent formation against the Marcos government then was the Moro National Liberation Front, led by Nur Wiswari, who was then based in Sabah in early 1974. The organization Parhimpulan Katan Nagaagama Sin Islam or Parkay attracted thousands who became the core of the MNLF.
The Marcos regime called them Maoists, shorthand for communist rebels. It was a blanket term the dictatorship used to demonize many of its detractors, but they were actually separatists who wanted autonomy for Filipino Muslims.
January 1974 in Sulu saw a challenge to the government with the takeover of the southern towns of Jolo, Maimbung, and other towns, forcing the military to launch a campaign to retake the southern towns. Jolo Airport came under mortar fire at the end of January, forcing the Philippine Air Force to transfer its assets to Zamboanga City. During the siege itself, at early dawn of February 7, the MNLF forces infiltrated Jolo town and occupied most of it, except for the brigade headquarters and the airport, where heavy fighting ensued. Over the next 2 weeks, up to February 21, the military besieged then retook Jolo. During the battle, fires broke out all over the city, with a major explosion on February 8 at the Caltex gasoline station. This was accompanied by the use of napalm by the Philippine Air Force. All of these were believed to have led to the conflagration which destroyed 2/3 of the city or the town. The battles continued for months to displace the MNLF from their positions on the hills surrounding Jolo. After the siege, when the military had secured Jolo, the cost of battle showed the following initial assessment. Initial reports indicated that among the MNLF, 612 were killed during the entire Jolo campaign. In Jolo itself, the military killed in action was reported to be 250. Among the civilians killed, various reports say 1,000 to 10,000. Those displaced rendered homeless in Jolo town were 40,000, remembering that the population in 1970 in Jolo was 46,588. Those who evacuated to Zamboanga and other places were 6,000. The government at the time offered Jolo residents loans up to 10 million, stopped all loan payments, and quite significantly stopped collecting national and local taxes. The market was ordered to be reconstructed. The foreign minister of Saudi Arabia was assured in his visit in March 1974 that the government would attend to the conflict, with Manila fearing an oil embargo from the OIC after the raising of Jolo. The Department of Social Welfare led an interagency task force to rehabilitate Jolo. By the end of March, the DOH had to respond to an outbreak of cholera and acute gastroenteritis among the residents of Jolo.
We'll pause here. Later, more survivors talk about the lingering effects of the siege.
The burning of Jolo didn't just represent a loss of infrastructure. It was a devastating blow to the fabric of Tausug and Jolo society, resulting in immeasurable human suffering, economic hardships, and destruction of our political structures.
That's Philippine Center for Islam and Democracy President Amina Rasul.
The toll on human life during the Jolo siege was staggering. The psychological scars of such a traumatic event continue to reverberate through generations of Joloanos, reminding us of the human cost of conflict.
Remember Amina's idyllic stories of Jolo before the siege? They weren't just romanticized childhood memories.
People in Manila think we were always conflict affected, always poor. No, we were very well off, even though we were neglected by government. 1970, Sulu, we were ranked 37 in terms of access to piped water. If you have access to piped water, you're not exactly poor. Compare it with Pampanga. You know who comes from Pampanga. They were ranked 39. Fast forward 1990, Sulu, number 52, rank 52. Pampanga, rank 15. In terms of access to electricity, Sulu, rank 38. Ilocos Sur, rank 50.
That's as of 1970 again.
Now, this is from the Philippine Statistical Agency, okay? 1990, Sulu, bottom. Ilocos Sur, 15. What happened in 20 years that made us from relatively well off to poorest of the poor? Starting with the bombing of Jolo, complete destruction of infrastructure, electricity, water, communications. And because of the destruction of infrastructure, our capitalists fled. So the money that made Jolo relatively rich went to enrich Zamboanga, General Santos, Cagayan de Oro, Cebu, Manila. And because there was capital flight and destruction of infrastructure, we had brain drain. The best and brightest had to leave because there were no opportunities and you had to support your families. Where did they go? Zamboanga, General Santos, Cagayan de Oro, Davao, Cebu, Manila. We helped these communities grow at a loss to our own. So this is what happened to us because of the siege.
But if this event was so traumatic, its effects still reverberating 50 years later in February 2024, why do we know so little about it? It's due in part to the heavy censorship that the public was living under at the time. Here's Elgin Salomon, a professor at UP Visayas who has written extensively about the siege and the media's coverage of it at the time.
So when Bulletin Today comprehensively reported the burning of Jolo on February 14, the Marcos government and the military already repelled the rebels. They already started the clearing operation, and they already rebuilt new commercial centers and continued the war on the hinterland of Sulu. So basically, that's a week after the burning of the town. The Marcos government also concealed the fighting to the public eye, particularly during the visit of Prime Minister Go Whitlam of Australia, and just before then Prince Juan Carlos's visit on February 18. So the government also downplayed the seriousness of the battle by stating to the public that only a few small number of rebels were involved. Another form of censorship can be seen in the selectivity of respondents that they interviewed. So some articles from from Bulletin Today describe the unfortunate situation of the town, but their subject's point of view aligned with the government's framing, which is to demonize the secessionist movement as a Maoist organization, and of course blaming them for the damages done in the town of Jolo.
Why never forget the Jolo siege? At least two reasons. No?
That's Soliman Santos Jr., a retired regional trial court judge from Naga City. He's also a peace advocate who has written extensively about the Jolo siege and other armed conflicts in the country.
First, it was a symbol of the Moro armed resistance to martial law, which was the strongest resistance in the early martial law years. Give that credit historical due. Second, it was a symbol of the horrors of war and under martial law, especially, as testified to by our survival panelists. Hopefully never again. Thus, it's important to never forget. But why does history seem to be repeating itself? Why the subsequent sieges in Ipil, 1995, Kabatangan, 2001, Zamboanga, 2013, and Marawi, 2017? Those who do not remember history are condemned to repeat it. How should we recall it today? First of all, I think we have to deepen our understanding of the Jolo siege, with the help of different perspectives. The event itself and its part in history. The event itself still has some hanging issues involving one or both sides. The burning, the use of napalm, use of landmines, the MNLF decision to fight in the town center instead of withdrawing outside the town center, the use of human shields. In international legal terms, issues of genocide and war crimes. Of course, not limited to the Jolo siege. Understanding the role of the Moro armed resistance. On one hand, it was anti-martial law dictatorship. On the other hand, and this should not be forgotten, it was also a national liberation struggle, in fact, initially for secession or independence. Very different from the kind that Duterte has been talking about recently.
As evidenced by these survivors and experts, time alone, even several decades, is not enough to heal wounds of this size. Left unexamined, they can fester and carry over across generations.
Some commentators, especially from Mindanao, like Inquirer columnist Rufagyam, has spoken of a need for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, even about the whole martial law era. In the Mindanao peace process, particularly with the MNLF, there is supposed to be a program for transitional justice and reconciliation, dealing with the past and involving these elements, right to know, right to justice, right to reparation, and guarantee of non-recurrence.
And that was today's episode of Teka Teka News. Again, I'm Bella Perez Rubio. Pidoy Blanco edited this episode. Our executive producer is Jill Caro, and our senior news editor is Veronica Uy. If you found this episode useful, share it with a friend or two. Thanks for listening.